Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer, as always, on the East Coast. And we are looking at 6 games here on a Thursday night. Decent-sized slate for a Thursday. In this one, we're taking a look at the Magic. They're hosting the Jazz. So talk about some of the numbers and the total probably in this one. Also have another game video and our player props up for you. So make sure to like and subscribe to that page and continue to follow along with us all season long. Also want you to head to thelines.com. That's where you can get all of the written content that we have for you guys all season long. Plenty of player props up there as well. You also have that odds finder tool up there that we have for you guys. You can make sure you're getting the best odds available to you from these U.S. sports books all season long. Nate, let's go ahead and get into this slate and then talk about this Magic and Jazz game.
We got Rockets plus 10 at the Pacers. Rockets have lost, 12 of their last 14, with the exception being the Spurs giving them games. Hornets -4 at Pistons. No LaMelo for Charlotte. No Bojan for the Pistons. This game, we got Jazz plus 3 at Magic. Total is at 234. The Warriors, the non-road Warriors, -2.5 at Memphis, another team that is sputtering in their own right. Just going to steer clear of that one for now and watch for some spicy fights that might happen, perhaps. And the Nets are plus 12 at Milwaukee. Dinwiddie and Cam Johnson are not going to play in that one. The other game we break down is the game of the night, I think pretty undisputed. Knicks plus 2.5 at Kings. You just hope Jalen Brunson plays. That total's been climbing all the way to 238, and we'll talk about that one in a minute. But yeah, this total also has climbed a little bit from 232 to 234, and I was already on the under at 232. The Jazz have a reputation of being this incredibly high-scoring game, sixth in points on the season, but lately it's been a real struggle. In their last 4, 108 points per game with a 104 rating. The last 7, it's been a struggle in terms of nearly equal assists to turnovers. They're dependent on the 3, but they're only hitting 11 per game at 31%. Still playing with a lot of pace, for sure, but the Magic are a team that limits pace, especially at home. We're talking about a 98 pace this season. And we've thrown in a lot of things recently to be like, oh, this team always goes over in this situation, except against Orlando. So why not take an under with Orlando? They are coming off 2 straight overs at home against the Bucks and the Dame Lillards, which are their own kind of unique situation. Under in 5 straight prior, under in 11 of their last 16 overall. We're talking Wendell Carter Jr. out, which lowers their assists, threes, offensive rating. They've lost 5 of their last 7 without him, including 3 straight at home. I don't know if I can really pick the Jazz to win right now because you seem, I don't know if Danny Ainge is tanking in terms of who's going to play or holding out Jordan Clarkson because they don't want to win, but they certainly hamstrung themselves by trading Mike Conley and Vanderbilt and Beasley at the deadline and just kind of sacking their depth. And now it's really the Lauri Markkanen show. We don't know if Clarkson's going to play or if Walker Kessler's going to play, which would help the under, if Kessler's going to play, because this is a heavily emphasis on interior play for the Orlando Magic. In the last time he played them, he had 7 blocks in 27 minutes. I will lean on the fact that Agbaji, who's his backup right now, also had 2 blocks in 26 minutes and dwarfed his plus-minus with plus 23. So I think the Jazz can guard the interior against Orlando with or without Blocker Kessler here. The last meeting was in Utah. It totaled only 220. And Utah is another team that scores an insane amount of points typically at home, but they did not shoot. Orlando shot pretty well from 3, which is surprising. The Jazz did not, but they got 40 free throw attempts, including 21 for Lauri Markkanen. They won the rebounding battle by 20, and they won the game despite having 9 more turnovers than assists. Both Markkanen and Clarkson struggled with turnovers, shot just 35% combined. Jordan Clarkson, if he plays, is dealing with a thumb injury that seems to be hampering his shot. And now in 5 games without Clarkson this season, the Jazz scoring 109 with a poor rating. So I just think that there's going to be some some negative regression in terms of Markkanen not being able to get to the line that many times. The Magic have seen him relatively recently. They kind of know how to like steer away from that contact and try to make him beat them. And there's just not any other offensive weapons right now. I mean, Colin Sexton is also out. There's just not much for the Jazz offense to make you think that they're going to light up Orlando, and Orlando is not a team typically that scores a ton of points either, especially at home.
Yeah, all well said. I'll just start by saying the only thing that scares me about the over is the pace that they're playing. I mean, the Magic also upped their pace roughly over the last, since the All-Star break. They're up to about 101 in that pace, and that's in part because of what you were saying a minute ago. The teams that you've seen them play at home recently between Portland and Milwaukee playing at a very, very fast pace as well now. And then for Charlotte as well, a game that Charlotte actually didn't come along for the ride, but the Orlando Magic looked really good on offense, as teams are wont to do against the Hornets right now. But yeah, I think the key thing here is we don't use the T word on this show. No one said that. No one said anyone was tanking. But when you trade a stud like Jared Vanderbilt, who's a top 5 wing defender in the league at such a young age, he can't shoot. That's fine, but like he's just incredible on defense right now. You get rid of him. Obviously, Mike Conley really wasn't for him at that point. He needed to leave anyway. But more importantly, like that Jordan Clarkson sat out, Blocker Kessler sat out the other night as well. We saw, and it could just be the same thing here. That means we're starting guys like Simone Fontecchio, who got the start the other night. He's getting 24 minutes a game for this team. I'm sure everyone's very familiar with his resume, the 27-year-old rookie out of Italy. And then Taylor Horton Tucker is also getting 33 minutes a game. And I'm not going to trash him. I mean, he's looked all right here and there, but like that's just a clear indication of like we had a really solid NBA roster. We don't want it for the future though. And so we got rid of the key parts. And then now we're playing guys who, whatever, you play guys in this situation who aren't as good for a reason. And that reason is to be the 13 seed that they are right now and hold on to that, even though they're only like a game and a half out of the play-in tournament. So it just doesn't seem like they're going for it. But I think the other thing about the Jazz team and their ability to score points at this point is Lauri's going to do his thing, but like you said, if he's going to be dependent on free throw attempts, it's either going to be threes or free throws that he has to get hot from, right? And if you take away the free throws because of how well Orlando is guarding that area, that sort of particular stat and really the rim in general, without Wendell Carter, maybe there's a bit more trouble there in terms of giving up points down low for Markkanen. But once again, if he's the only guy, if he's doing it from deep or from down low, 30 points, fine. Like I'm not really worried about the total getting over just because one guy on their squad is able to get that, because of the fact that they're not really trotting out an NBA squad nearly as much anymore. So, I mean, the combined score and since the All-Star break, like for these two teams, they're averaging each like a total of like 224. One of them was averaging 111 points a game there for the Jazz. It's just been awful, right, since the All-Star break. And then for the Magic, the 113 for them, their offensive rating pretty good, but still only the 113 points a game. And then the better defense at home, like you said. So I would prefer under, starting with just who, like I said, Utah's trotting out there. I just don't trust them to be able to get those points.
Yeah, and it makes us kind of lean towards Orlando as well, doesn't it? Yeah. To say, like, look, the Jazz might actually be trying to lose these games. This is the 4th game of a 6-game road trip for them. Even if they're not trying, it's kind of exhausting. And we don't expect much offense other than a transcendent performance from Markkanen, and that might not even get it done. Typically, the Magic do a much better job limiting free throw attempts. They allow just 16% of their points to opponents off free throws. They're 8th in paint points allowed at home, 5th in assist to turnover ratio in their last 3. So all the things that Utah struggled with lately, ball control and efficiency, doesn't seem like it's really going to be there. And I mean, they'd have to hit a high percentage of threes, and that just hasn't been there either without Clarkson and Beasley and all those guys that we mentioned. So, yeah, I mean, Orlando is your horse. You do like to ride them at times. Whenever we do talk about them at -3, it's not great, but maybe the Orlando money line plus under is some good odds here. We were talking about 3-8 straight up for the Jazz when they're on a rest disadvantage, and this exhausting road trip, combined with the fact that who they're trotting out there is a lot of rookies, makes you think maybe Orlando can get it done.
Yeah, the only thing I would say about Orlando is I like them in slightly different situations. I like them at +8 at home against the Bulls, or some team even a little bit better than the Bulls, right? Like they and the Pacers. I just love when you've got like above 7 point spread for those types of teams. The Magic are 2-6 against the spread as home favorites. Not the situation that I like them in. They're failing. They're actually have a -3 margin of victory. You know, they're losing games by an average of 3 in those situations straight up. So I really don't love to think about them being in this position having to win. I could see Utah jumping out to somewhat of an early lead, and then maybe Orlando grinding this thing down a bit and getting a bit more of those 2-pointers that they score to slow things down on the offensive side. So either way, I do like the under a bit, and I'm not necessarily feeling too good to have to get any points. And I think Utah could win the game at the end just as easily if they are hanging around like I kind of expect them to. So,
And then we have Knicks +2.5 right now at the Kings. Did this total actually open at 225, or was that a misprint somewhere?
I can't imagine it was a misprint. That's what I saw when it opened last night.
If that's the case, like some odds maker is getting demoted, because that has been hammered since, and it's now 238.5. Sacramento averages nearly 250 points per game at home since the start of January. So against the Knicks team that has been on fire on offense, and lately that does seem completely off. Now we're in the territory where it's like, well, it's been bet up so much that I don't really want any part of it anymore. I might even like keep waiting and say, like, guys, if it gets to 240, 242, then you take the under at this point, because it is a Knicks team that will limit the paint. The Kings have not been as prolific shooting threes lately. And we don't know if De'Aaron Fox is going to have his explosion here after missing a couple games with a hamstring issue. He's fully expected to play. The biggest thing this game is contingent on, though, is whether Jalen Brunson's going to play after missing those last two with the foot. And then they lose to Charlotte in that one. Look, even if Jalen plays, I like the Kings. I think this just means more to them. I think the Knicks have proven their stuff during that streak, beating the Celtics twice, etc. I don't think out-of-conference games are going to carry the same weight for them in terms of, like, we need to get this one. And the Kings are fighting like hell to get this 2 seed, which they just grabbed, and then now they're going to hold on to it. And just to make the playoffs, it's just such a woebegone franchise. I guess they both are to a degree, but the Kings have not lapsed in their concentration at any point, but especially at home. Beating the Clippers twice in this span in these really high-scoring games. Very impressive stuff. And Mike Brown, I feel like, is the type of coach to know how to attack a Tom Thibodeau defense. They just beat the Knicks without De'Aaron Fox, which is a huge difference in their splits, scoring 109 without him versus 122. When he's in there, he was on an absolute tear before missing a couple with that hamstring injury. The concern is that they're kind of Civ-like in the paint, and that they limit assisted field goals, but the Knicks don't really depend on that at all. They're also dead last in opponents' 2-point percentage. So if Jalen plays, there's certainly a good argument that there will be a lot of points in this game, because he's able to operate so much inside the 3-point arc, get himself or other guys good looks there. But I still think it kind of goes under 240. It's just a feeling that the Knicks aren't, your typical team that we've seen coming to Sacramento lately, a la the Clippers, who just are fine, just completely running up and down, going nuts. They've gone over in 8 of their last 10 against Western Conference teams, have the Knicks, but it's kind of skewed by some of the teams they play. They play like the shell of the Suns, the shell of the Warriors, and lighting those teams up. Not necessarily the same thing as when you have a Kings team that's motivated, and what they do defensively is really, it's as impressive as offensively, right? I mean, let's concentrate on the fact that the Knicks are winning games because they're a two-way team, because they have Josh Hart now. They're better defensively. And on the road in their last 6, won 5 of them, limiting fast break points, paint points as always. And yeah, I just think they'll be able to slow down the Kings' breaking offense enough, and that Sabonis won't necessarily be able to control the paint on offense with Mitchell Robinson there hounding him. So I don't think the Kings are going to be scoring like 125 like they usually do. And that makes me lean under a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, 238.5 is high, but I think you sort of opened with a pretty startling point that the Kings games average close to 250 in Sacramento. So that's terrifying. I'd probably still take an over if I was going to hit the total on this one. I'm really, everything I want to say is dependent on Jalen Brunson playing. I also want to make a few quick points. One, the Knicks are not a woebegone franchise. They don't have the longest playoff drought in the history in sports right now, like the Kings do. So let's just start there. Which a drought that's about to end. Thank you, Sacramento.
Yeah,
the other thing, the Knicks did win their Knicks won their prior matchup in New York. That was a different game. De'Aaron Fox didn't play in it. Do what you will with D Fox right now, because like you were saying, 26.5 points feels high for a guy coming back from a hamstring injury, missing 2 games. But at the same time, like he was averaging 33 points a game in his 7 games prior to that injury, which is a terrifying stat, and 7 assists as well, which feels like maybe his prop is low at that point if you think that there are going to be points in this game. But once again, I think it comes down to Jalen, to be honest with you. There's the startling splits that these two teams have when their point guards don't play it's really obvious. It's really stark, right? Without Fox, the Kings score 109 points a game this season. With him, the 122. Like this engine doesn't run without him, right? He is the engine of the entire car, this offense. And then for Jalen, it's similar stuff. Like, I mean, they have probably, I don't want to say a better supporting cast by any means, but I think they have a few other guys who can carry the load. In the meantime, Emmanuel quickly is obviously not shy. At this point, we saw what he did against the Celtics when they didn't have Jalen Brunson and still won that game on the road. But what's interesting with and without Jalen stuff this year is just like when they're on the road with him or without him rather, their games don't seem to be quite as high of scoring versus when they're on the at home rather. And so just interestingly, it's not a very large sample size, but like it's a very specific situation that like without Jalen on the road, they're basically just like scoring not quite as many points. A few more points than they are at home. The pace is also a bit up, so like without him, they're just not as efficient of an offense. It's basically just 9 more 3-point attempts per game when Jalen's not in there because it's Julius Randle, newly found 3-point guru. Apparently, Julius Randle, who's been averaging more than 9 3-point attempts for the last like month and a half, almost 2 months of the season, which is how he got inserted into that 3-point contest in the first place. Because all of a sudden he was just like, I'm hoisting, and that's their offense. And Quickly's responsible for that as well. When he's playing without Jalen Brunson, obviously his usage goes way up, and then the amount of threes that he shoots in that usage also go way up. And so there's a reason for that. He's a better defender though. Emmanuel Quickly is a better defender than Jalen. He's a very good defender actually. Probably has some all defensive teams in his future. And if he's getting more minutes than Jalen Brunson is, then that also kind of tends to lead me towards a bit less points and a bit of an under. So Jalen not playing really is sort of a bit of a determining factor for me. You kind of made the point, if Jalen doesn't, if you want to get ahead of Jalen not playing, minus 2.5 for the Kangs at home in this situation feels pretty good, knowing that they're going to have their star point guard and captain in De'Aaron Fox. If Jalen Brunson isn't playing, Emmanuel Quickly will still probably have a really good game. I think he'll be able to do his thing, but I think it's more defense, less offense in that situation with Emmanuel than with Jalen, because with the fact that this team doesn't get assists, like they're going to play the same style of ball if Jalen's in there or not. They're just going to have someone who's like a top 5 point guard versus not having him, being able to play those one-on-one style matchups that they create on offense. They need him for that. Quickly probably relies a bit more on certain like pick and rolls and things like that.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that the Sacramento Bee in their preview for this game tonight said we're watching the status of 2 all-star guards from each team, and then completely must have facepalmed their editor, realizing that Jalen Brunson was not an all-star for some stupid student. But he is lighting the league on fire since. And just to address that, I mean, could the Knicks and Kings be any more parallel right now, having, been... I mean, I guess the Kings in the early 2000s were a contender. getting all the way to the Western Conference Finals. They were thwarted by crooked refs. The Knicks thwarted by Michael Jordan. But in any case, both of them have been woebegone since, and I will not have you say that you think are not one of the most downtrodden, laughed at franchises in the last 20 years. But yeah, looking at this particular matchup, I mean, the Celtics game with Quickly is an anomaly. The Celtics are an anomaly right now. They will cough up any lead. The Knicks have played a ton of overtime games lately too, against both the Celtics and others that have skewed their totals, more points per game. So I mean, like you pointed out, the road games are still not averaging that much. And even if Sacramento does average those kind of crazy things, those are typically against the Western Conference and up and down teams. And you look at De'Aaron Fox against the Eastern Conference this year, it's varied wildly depending on whether he's facing, I think, a team that has more athleticism and more paint protection like the Knicks. And overall, averaging 19.5 points per game. Tibbs is going to have something there for him. And Mike Brown's going to have something there for Julius Randle, who has not been efficient against the Mike Brown coached Warriors the last 5 years or so. Granted, Draymond Green's out there guarding him, but I think, a good coach like Brown, if JR is going to be the top option here, I think that kind of is trouble for the Knicks.
Fair. I would also throw out there, actually, though, if, once again, Jalen Brunson does not play, pay attention to that before you do anything with this game, to be honest, unless you're trying to get ahead of him not playing. I also like RJ a bit. This team, the Kings do give up a bunch of points. Keegan Murray, not the best defender as a rook. And from that position, small forward, power forward, whatever you want to call him, he plays just up front court forward on the wing as well. Like I like RJ in this matchup. He had 27 and 9 boards last game, as well as getting to the line 9 times, and with that type of bully ball. So, so Nate, let's go ahead and jump right into your first for tonight, Mr. Gordo Hayward.
Yeah, Charlotte coming off beating your Knickerbockers with Gordo leading the way. And he's really been pretty good in his last 10 here. Half of them basically without LaMelo. He's averaging 20 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists in that span. That includes 19, 5, and 6 against Detroit in the game where LaMelo got hurt. You look at his splits since last season without LaMelo. Points per game go up 3 to 17.5. The usage rate goes up from 19.5 to 23%. Plays a few more minutes as well. Only twice in this 10-game span has he failed to score 16, which is where his prop is at 16.5. And that was against matchups against Mikal Bridges and Kevin Durant. It's pretty much the toughest you can get there for a small forward. But otherwise, he's knifed through bad defenses, and Detroit is the second worst defense in the league. They've already ruled out Bojan, Alec Burks, Isaiah Stewart. They give up the 6th most points to small forwards in general. Bojan's not really a defensive stopper anyway, so 16.5 points, like I said, slightly better odds if you tack on 5 rebounds or 5 assists. I think I like the rebounds a little bit more because Detroit is a young team that's playing with pace and not scoring a lot. So I do think he gets a few boards here as well, but I think he scores closer to 20 than 16.
Yeah, I would also throw Hamidou Diallo is also out. He got hurt after he was supposed to be getting a bunch of minutes the other night. So I don't know who's left on the wing. We know Cade's been hurt. They are going to have Killian Hayes back, so that's one person. But yeah, I don't know who's going to be on the line for Detroit to stop them. Like, even Bogey, like if he was out there, I would feel better about it, to be honest, right? But Bogey's got an Achilles thing now, might be done for the season. Really sad to see about that. But either way,
which is to say, Jaden Ivey's props are appealing as well. I mean, the points and assists together, he's been balling out with nobody around there to take any of the touches away.
Yeah, if he wasn't, I would have said Isaiah Livers. He has a 9.5 point prop right now. Yeah. He's also been getting enough minutes to be worthy of attention right now. But with Ivy back too, though, that does put a little bit of a dent in him. Enough Pistons talk. Let's move on to the Pacers, where I'm going back to the well, man, because I think Halliburton's stats are still just a little bit too low. We loved him the other night. We hit, 3 bets with him, all at plus odds, I believe, in that game where he went off in their loss to the 76ers. Great matchup, as the 76ers have been the second worst team at guarding point guards, only second behind the Houston Rockets, who are the worst at guarding that position and maybe the worst defensive team in the league. I think we can give them that nod at this point. And Halliburton's points are at 22.5. His points and assists, 33.5 on DK. It's minus 105 on DraftKings there. You could probably get 30. You could get that a little bit lower, like 32.5, but for way worse odds. So I would just take the 33.5 points and assists combined. In Baby's last 7, 26.5 points a game, which is beautiful. And then 11.5 assists per game in that time as well. Obviously aided by having 15, 16 the other night or whatever he had, 17, something insane in a game that he actually got out-dueled by James Harden, who happened to have more assists. He had 20 in that one. But he's in those last 7, he's played 4 of the top 10 defenses in the league, including the Bulls twice. Still playing, and a couple of those were on the road. This one's at home. He scores more points at home, has a slight uptick in assists as well. Indy, as in general, has 115 offensive rating at home versus 111 on the road. They're scoring 6 more points in their home building. So Houston and that bad defense, like I said, not one of those top 4, not one of those top 10 defenses I was mentioning. They, in their last 7, have been bottom 3 in allowing points per game at 122, 3-pointers made at more than 15.5, and assists as well, allowing the most points per game to point guards and the second most assists to point guards, which was really what drew my eye to this one in the first place. You combine Halliburton with a team that just does not have a point of attack defender anywhere, especially with Jalen Green getting as many minutes as he is right now. This is a pretty good matchup for Halliburton. And I don't know that the blowout factor even really is something to be worried about. I know that the Rockets suck, but they kept it close last time they played to about 8 points. And then also Indy is just not quite as good in the situations where they're expected to win. Kind of like I was talking about in that Magic video. It's not the spot for them to be dominant. I think they're going to give up a bunch of points tonight as well.
Yeah, I definitely like this game for some props. I'm a little concerned. You talk about how he's lit up some of the top defenses in terms of scoring, Halliburton. I think it's a situation where he gets buckets when his team doesn't have other places to go, but I think he'll be facilitating more in this matchup because Houston's so bad everywhere that I kind of would lean towards the assists more, definitely combining it. I wouldn't just go straight points, 22.5, because you look at some of his lines against Portland, Sacramento, Utah, other really bad defenses, and he's getting double-digit dimes, but I don't know if he's going to have that same usage rate to score, but the threes and the assists are definitely in play for our guy. Nobody's guy here, but somebody who we want to target, Villain Brooks, nice. Over 13.5 points, pretty much even money at MGM, which is notable if you get it at that book, because it's minus 120 at DraftKings or other spots, because it's pretty obvious the usage is going to be up here with no Ja Morant, also no Steven Adams or Brandon Clark, so minutes are going to be there. It's against the Warriors, which is a testy rivalry, and Brooks loves to insert himself into those spots. He's going to have to try to back up his mouth here, because he's going to be the number 2A option with Triple J here. His last 6 in the regular season against Golden State, I emphasize that because he's not very good in playoffs, but 16 points per game on a 24% usage rate, and his usage rate goes up to 29% when Ja is out. In 9 without Ja this season, he's getting 19 points per game. So also about 3.5 boards and 3 assists. If you want to make it 18.5 PRA, I think that's fine. And there should be stats all over the place here with Golden State playing at an insane pace and just being absolutely abysmal on defense on the road. Just, shake your head again. I can't believe they gave up 141 to the Thunder without their second best player. Without Andrew Wiggins on the season, they now have a 124 defensive rating on the road, and Wiggins is the guy who would have been guarding Brooks, so now he'll work against Kuminga and other maybe even smaller guards as he tries to pick up the slack here without Ja.
Yeah, the Warriors on the road, we believe you. We were texting last night, and I said, I believe you, Warriors. You are the Houston Rockets when you play on the road. Got it. We get it now. It's not an anomaly when you do it 35 times or 32 times, or how many games they've had on the road this season. So Villain Brooks, I like that game. I haven't heard that before. 13.5 points. It's pretty low, and I like the minus 105 on MGM there. But like you said, if you want to add some of the hustle stats and some rebounds as well, I wouldn't have a problem with that. This is pretty low for him. him tonight. So I'm going to go with my guy Brolo, having just an absolute tear of a season, and really, a tear of a last, let's say 8 games, which I'll talk about. He's got a prop for his points and rebounds. That's 20.5 there. So he needs to get 21 combined points and rebounds. He's been averaging 21 points per game in his last 8. He has not failed he has gotten his props 14.5 points, 5.5 boards, or 20.5 points and rebounds. He's gotten that in every single game over those last 8. One game he failed to get the rebounds, but he still had the 18 points in there. So I don't get why it's so low. Nick Claxton is out tonight. So is Royce O'Neal. So is Cam Johnson. Those are 3 very big guys for them down low, where they're already not a very good team down low. Shockingly or unshockingly, they relied on Kevin Durant for 8 rebounds a game, and now they don't have him. And they are the second worst rebounding team in the league at this point. Just hemorrhaging boards, really. And versus Brooklyn in the past, Brook has done well. Even when Nick Claxton's been in there, he's gotten over these props with 14 points and 7 boards this season in just 28 minutes. And he's actually averaging 31 over his last 8, where, like I said, he's averaging those 21 points, 7 boards, also a couple blocks in there if you wanted to look at that prop. But like I said, Brooklyn, not only are they the second worst rebounding team in the league over their last 8, they're also allowing the most rebounds per game of any team to centers specifically. So I just think, the alt rebounds might be a better bet. 5.5 is the rebound prop for him right now, and that's minus 140. It's the best odds you're going to get on that. Go ahead and take it if you want to alt it and get one more, bump it up to 6.5 boards on DraftKings. Gets you up to plus 105 at least, which is some nice juice back for him to get the 7 rebounds, which is right on the cusp. I think the 20.5 points of rebounds either way is pretty much a lock.
Yeah, I was surprised to see his game log, how productive he's been lately. I mean, because you often look at Lopez and you're like, how are you only getting 3 rebounds a game? But he's starting to board up. I think that those boards are definitely in play. It's minus 200 for him to get 2 blocks. So they expect Brooklyn to be getting sent back at the rim here. I think he will own the paint. It's just a question of, is it going to be a blowout? Minus 13 is where it was a minute ago. But I do think Giannis, Drew might not score as much as usual. Might see more of a balanced attack from the Bucks as they beat down this shorthanded team.
Yeah, this shorthanded team, no Dinwiddie also out there tonight. So, yeah, you're going to be seeing a lot of those backups. But like I said, we don't use the T word on this show, so no one's accusing anyone of tanking. And that is all the time we have for you guys in this one. So make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along. Check us out on the other game videos we have for you tonight as well. And until we see you next, happy betting.